Wealth is not about having a lot of money. It's about having a lot of options. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Podnutz Pro. I am your host, Marvin Bee, coming at you as per usual from the great state of Florida, hometown city, Fort Lauderdale. Podnutz Pro is your podcast for business IT support, where we talk about products, share stories and tips, all in an effort to help you run your business better, smarter, and faster. And yes, we are going to be doing that today, especially when it comes to Wi-Fi. I have joining with me a friend that I met first 2 years ago up in Michigan, a product specialist from Datto, Ryan. Ryan, how are you?
Marvin, I'm awesome. Thanks for having me. How are you?
Right, I'm good. And we should have coordinated a little bit better. We're almost with the black shirts, but you got the Wi-Fi logo. I don't.
Marvin, I don't wear collars after 5 o'clock.
Well, as you can see, I'm still at work, so.
Me too, just collarless.
So, all right. So, folks, this is a podcast that we have every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. And we are streaming live on YouTube and the Facebook. So if you are listening to this by audio and you want to see exactly how the show is done, what we're wearing, what we're drinking, all that good stuff, head over to YouTube or Facebook on Wednesday nights at 8 and catch us live. What you might want to do is subscribe or follow Podnutz Pro on one of those places. You'll be alerted when the show is live. You can also go to the website podnutzpro.com, where you can subscribe to any of the places that you can listen to podcasts, Spotify. I just forgot all the places that, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, all those places where you can listen while you're out on the road or walking the dog, out by the pool. And by the way, thank you for all the kind comments about my pool deck. We finally got finished. I put some pictures up on the Facebook. And those of you thinking that you're going to come down and have a pool party, that will not be happening. So that is it. So, Ryan, when we jumped on earlier, you had a little bit of sun peeking through your window.
I did, yeah.
We don't have any right now because it's getting darker here for us. So how is the weather up there? You're way up there in the north.
I don't know if I'd go as far as way up there, but I'm in the great state of Rhode Island, really large state up here in the Northeast. And the weather's awesome. It was 67 today. So we're moving in the right direction. Not quite up to Florida, but getting close. And it was sunny, not a cloud in the sky. And I'm fortunate I live on the water, so I just got to see a nice sunset out my office window here.
That's nice. That's nice. So it's 84 here right now. We got up to 89 today. And it's a pretty nice day today, although we'll be having thunderstorms a little bit later this evening. So I may have to drive home instead of walk home. So
par for the course in Florida, I feel like, the quick thunderstorm.
Yeah, pretty much. So Ryan, as I mentioned earlier, and I met 2 years ago in Grand Rapids, Michigan, where we did a presentation on Datto networking up there. So we're not going to duplicate that. That was much more of an overview. We're going to get a little in-depth tonight and talk about Datto networking, Wi-Fi 6, which is out. You guys had a great webinar yesterday. And I should ask this. So Michael DePalma had a couple of little moments where he talked about a 12-year commit for getting these new devices.
I didn't catch it at all, but if anybody's willing to sign up for 12 years, we're willing to have you for as long as you'd like to say.
I was wondering if he got grief on that or if you guys got grief on that. That was just interesting that he said it at least twice.
There was one other fumble in there that I heard about today, and it escapes me what it was. We also mismatched on slides a couple times. So, never perfect, but I feel like it was a good event. We've gotten good feedback. So it's been a long couple of days, a lot of fun, and really excited about the new devices.
All right. We will be talking about those a little bit later. I do want to acknowledge the people that are watching live. Feel free to comment, ask questions. We will try to check and answer those as we go along here. And I believe we are staying after the show for a little post show so we can get a little casual and talk about some non-tech stuff if you like. But right now, it is time for us to go in the news. This is one of the rare occasions where I get to tackle two themes with one story. Many of you have heard my joy with Amazon the last couple of weeks in returning products where they don't just accept it anymore. You have to actually talk to somebody or chat with someone. Well, in Brevard County, Florida, which is where I grew up, a Florida Amazon delivery driver refused to deliver a package to the home of William Ulbrich, citing company procedures and protocols. Ulbrich says that the package had necessary medical equipment inside. He reportedly became angry, called the driver names, then started to chase the driver in his 2000 Toyota pickup. Now listen, I know it sucks not getting a package, but what happens next is very interesting. According to the arrest report, a police officer recorded Ulbrich on his cruiser's dash cam trying to ram his pickup into the side of the Amazon delivery vehicle. He even went as far as driving into the median of the highway in the attempt to ram the Amazon driver. So Ulbrich was arrested on US Highway 1, and then of course he tried to deny that he tried to ram the driver and noted that if he wanted to, he would have. So there we go, folks, tackling both a tech story and a Florida man story all in one, all in my home county of Brevard County. How about that?
Do we know what was in the package?
No, they didn't do any more reporting on that. I'll have to call somebody up there and see if there's a follow-up to the story.
Interesting.
But I wonder what the medical supplies are, because most of Florida, it's still not legal to have medical marijuana. So I wonder if that may have been it.
Does it differ from county to county? Is that how it works?
So officially, no. But as you may have heard from reports of other things over the last year, Florida acts a little different. We are kind of like the Wild West of everything. And every county outside of Palm Beach, Broward, and Dade pretty much does what they want.
That explains it. I was down in, where is Stewart? Would that be Palm Beach County?
Stewart is just north of Palm Beach.
Okay. So I was down in Stewart maybe about a month ago, and I was really excited. I've had it with masks, and I figure, like, here's my opportunity. I keep hearing about Florida's the Wild West. Nobody wears masks. I fly down the floor. Everybody has a mask on. So
yeah, Stewart is close enough to Palm Beach that they do it. Now, if you had gone over to the West Coast or maybe up to like North Central Florida, you'd have been fine.
All right. Good to know.
You'd have been fine.
Next pandemic, I'll head to the West Coast.
All right. Just call me before you come down. I'll let you know.
Perfect.
Where the pockets are. All right. So before we get too far into the show here, I want to let everybody or remind everybody. So Datto was on the show a little earlier this year. That would be show number 322 on January 21st. Jason Price was on the show, and we just did a basically what's new with Datto. So I wanted to say, if you have not gone back and listened to that show, you can do that and hear Jason and I talk Datto and air fryers. And that should be good. So, Ryan, who's more popular, you or Jason?
Jason.
Really?
Definitely.
Okay.
He's better looking. I mean, what can I say?
All right.
I'm working on it though. I'm gonna get some Rogaine and see if I can't catch up.
All right, we'll do that. So, and also, so you guys did the announcement yesterday of the new Wi-Fi 6 devices, and then today, Datto announces their first quarter earnings.
Oh, interesting timing.
I was wondering about that. You guys did that ahead of the earnings report, and I can tell you this: very healthy earnings, up 17% of subscription revenue, 16% of total revenue, and 15% of ARR. And I don't know what this means, but your gross margin is plus 3.1 BPS.
As long as it's plus, I like it, Marvin.
There you go. So if anybody wants to do that, I won't have the link to that in the show notes, but I just thought it was interesting that came out today. So, all right. So Ryan, where do you want to start with Datto networking?
I guess it would make sense to just kind of go back in history and tell the networking story. Datto, as a company well known for backup and disaster recovery. Later, we merged with Autotask, bring business tools into the environment, aiming to help MSPs operate more efficiently. What's always made us unique as a company is that we're obsessed with MSPs, and there's a lot of channel organizations, but there are very few who focus only on one segment of IT services, and Datto is one of those companies. In my mind, making it a special place not only to work, but also a special company to partner with. And if we go back in a time machine to approximately 2016, 17, and we were sitting in an executive office, we might have found that they were analyzing ticketing data and noticing that a high volume of tickets were being categorized as network connectivity challenges. So back in the day, Austin and his team went out on a search, started talking to MSPs, trying to find out what are the challenges that you're facing. And what they really learned, and I came from managed services, so I really agree with the concept, is that there are a lot of different vendors in networking. Like there's dozens and dozens and dozens of networking vendors. And so with all these vendors, how come MSPs were struggling to provide a high quality experience for their customers? What it really came down with is none of the business models. It's not that the tech isn't good, because it is, but none of those companies were bringing equipment to market and in developing it in a way that specifically had the managed service provider in mind. And so when we entered the networking space, we started with an edge router. We then acquired Open Mesh, and I know you were an Open Mesh customer. And then since then, I've continued to develop out the software portion of what was Open Mesh, and then also the hardware side of the business. Again, aiming to deliver performant networking equipment that's purpose-built for MSPs, helps our partners solve problems, but also give them the ability to grow their business effectively, satisfy customers, keep them for a long time.
Yep. I still have some Open Mesh out there, but I have started to make the move in transferring my Open Mesh access points over to Datto networking, of course, getting new devices as well. And I can say this: when we thought that we were going to lose all the goodness of Open Mesh, we were wrong, because all of that stayed, and all of the Datto support and intelligence behind it came with it. So the dashboard pretty much looks the same, but actually has a little bit more functionality built into it. So that works out. And the fact that if we're talking access points, networking gear, routers, you can see everything in a single dashboard, and that's pretty good.
Yeah, some of the things we've done in we call it Datto Network Manager. Originally, CloudTrax was the platform for cloud management by Open Mesh. We've designed it more logically. We've improved alert times. So it used to be up to an hour for an alert. Now at the worst case scenario, it's 10 minutes, and it's granular today. You can pick and choose the types of alerts you'd like to receive. Other improvements like added logging details, so more visibility in the UI. But what I think sometimes is missed, unless you're using the full Datto suite, are integrations. And so about a year, maybe a year and a half ago, we announced and released a cloud-to-cloud integration with our RMM tool. And so now partners who happen to be using that tool have the ability to monitor and manage Datto networking equipment in the same platform where they're monitoring and managing workstations and servers. And there's no additional license required. So it was really a win for that community.
Yep, really good. And as soon as I, get off my butt and switch everything else over, I just haven't done that. Consolidating the stack is tough when you got stuff out there that you're comfortable with and your customers are comfortable with, but moving them all over on the access points was easy, and most of them didn't even know I did it. So.
Little by little, Marvin, and we're not going anywhere. We have those earnings you shared, so when you're ready, we're here for you.
Now, I will say this: I'm going to share a little personal story. So I was slow to start addressing the switches because listen, I'm stubborn. I'm not going to try to deny that. I don't like change. I mean, I find stuff that works and I stick with it.
Yep.
But I got a little SL8 here recently and plugged that in. And yes, it did PoE, but I plugged my networking device into it, my NetAlly One Touch, didn't see squat. And I was like, oh, this stinks. I'm thinking I'm never going to buy a Datto networking switch. But got in, looked around, turned on SNMP. Oh, things lit up. I was like, so my question, and I don't know if you can answer this or not, but is why isn't SNMP on by default?
Cloud managed technology. It's designed really for an open API. So where possible, most vendors have integrated over API. The reason why it's off by default, beyond me, to be honest. On the topic of SNMP, something cool with the new access points is they also support SNMP, which was something that our original APs didn't have. And so if you're using a tool to monitor access points over SNMP, you want performance data, now that'll be available to you.
All right, sweet. So I haven't had a chance to look at the new ones, but let's go ahead and get into that because that was obviously your big announcement yesterday.
Sure.
So 2 new models aimed specifically at Wi-Fi 6.
Yes, sir.
And those models, if you're not a Datto partner, I'll give you the model numbers, but you really need to become a Datto partner, get into the portal and look at stuff. So we're not going to talk pricing or anything like that. But the 840 and the 840E basically take a huge step, not only bringing Wi-Fi 6 into the Datto stack, but bringing in some very beastly enterprise type access points, right?
I'd agree with that statement. Yes, sir.
All right. So I guess we should probably have started with what is Wi-Fi 6 and does it really mean anything to us?
Yeah, so Wi-Fi 6 is awesome. And if I was going to equate it to something that the general consumer, not calling anybody on this call a general consumer, would relate to, it would be the transition from 3G to 4G and more similar really from a technical perspective from 4G to 5G. In fact, a lot of the improvements that you'll see over Wi-Fi 6 were actually taken from wireless, from what was done in LTE, and that's really OFDMA, which basically takes the spectrum. So if you've got a 20 megahertz spectrum, generally you'd have, I think it's 64 channels through which you can carry and transmit data. Now it widens that to 240 some odd channels. So think about how much more efficient it is to send and receive data over Wi-Fi 6. So that's one of the cool things. One of the others that I really like is you're familiar, Marvin, with multi-user Mimo?
Mimo, yes.
Yep. So in Wi-Fi 5, which is where that was introduced, it only moves in one direction. And with Wi-Fi 6, bidirectional Mimo or Mimo, depending on how you like to say it. So essentially now the AP can send data out to the client devices, multiple at a time, but now also the client devices, multiple can send data into the AP. So just think about how that's going to impact the access points responsiveness, the ability for it to work in a dense environment or an environment where you have more and more connected things. Contention's always a challenge, and the real value of Wi-Fi 6 is that it's more efficient.
All right. So that makes great sense because one of the struggles I had, and Ryan is not going to be surprised by this. We talked about this before. So I had to go to Ruckus for a couple of my clients because they had to have so many devices on the Wi-Fi at the same time, and they were uploading a lot of data. The medical offices were uploading pictures and x-rays, and they all had to be on. They were running their medical software on their iPads. And before, now I did this before Open Mesh was acquired by Datto, so maybe things will be better. But but having that many devices on, that much traffic, even the enterprise devices would get overloaded.
Sure.
So it sounds like Wi-Fi 6 is going to make it so that that's not going to be a problem anymore for most businesses.
Yeah, and there's more that comes into play there when you talk about multiple devices. The IoT has really changed the landscape. So we had the wireless evolution, that changed how networks are managed, business tools being connected by Wi-Fi. Today, you've got office spaces that are entirely running on Wi-Fi, like nothing's hardwired, and that's becoming commonplace. So now you add, smart security systems, locking systems, lighting systems. I've even seen partners who have gotten away with billing for Wi-Fi enabled coffee machines. I mean, there's just a lot of stuff connected over Wi-Fi today. So Wi-Fi 6 certainly helps there. In addition, it helps with battery life. It's more efficient. So those IoT devices, now the sky's really the limit with what you might be able to produce and bring in as a connected device. But other things that really help here are, what type of radio do you have under the hood? And, so historically, the devices that you mentioned, 2x2 radios.
2x2, maybe a 3x3.
So they had a 3x3, yep. And then when you get into those dense environments, a 4x4 radio is really the sweet spot. Here you can handle, up to like 200, 250 simultaneous connections on one access point.
Right. So the new devices are going to be 4x4.
They are, yep.
And obviously Wi-Fi 6. Now, one is designed for indoor, the other for outdoor. And in terms of things like speed, so I know that, I saw somewhere that Wi-Fi 6 was supposed to be able to be up to 9.6 gigabits or gigabytes per second or whatever versus 3.5 that Wi-Fi 5 is at now. Is that true? Is that?
So you're never going to see any of those on either of those technologies.
I'm just saying, I read it.
So if you look at data rate, so throughput is kind of a misleading statistic with Wi-Fi because it's difficult to really predict.
Right.
It's a real thing, but it's difficult to predict. So usually we look at data rates. If you look at Wi-Fi 6 on a single radio, the max data rate's really, I think it's 1.2 gigabits per second. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong. What you find when you look at data sheets, and ours is no different, is companies, and I'm pretty sure everybody does this, but they take all of the radios, and then they aggregate
add them together.
Yeah, and so now you've got 3.6 instead of 1.2, for example.
All right, I saw it out there. Thought I'd ask you. You're the expert.
Yeah, it's a good question, and if anybody wants to misquote me on the 1.2, I could absolutely be wrong, but I'm pretty certain that's your max data rate.
All right, and let's see what else on Wi-Fi 6. So more end users, more devices. So the improved battery life, that's actually, I don't remember seeing that anywhere. So that's going to be pretty good.
Yeah, it's called target wait time. So it allows for individual wake up schedules. So basically the client devices always go into a low power state, but they have to constantly check in with access points in order to stay connected. With Wi-Fi 6, they have to do that less. So that allows for better data rate, but it also improves battery life on the client devices.
All right. All right, done with that page. Go to the next page. See what
how many pages do we have?
We got a lot of pages.
I'm not sweating yet, so I think we're okay.
Let's see. Okay, that's all good there. Now, I know that people were asking some pretty technical questions on the webinar yesterday, which I don't really care about. I just need to know, is it consistent? Is it fast? Is it easy? And I think all of that's not really going to change if you're in the Datto, team right now. So is there going to be any updates in like the portal that will, focus on these Wi-Fi 6 features that, where you can go in and say, like the improved battery life? Are there things where you can toggle how long a device, doesn't have to check in for, or things like that? And here's the reason I'm asking. So I've got one client. I have one client that's got these Wi-Fi brother label printers. And in all my other Wi-Fi environments, I've always been able to turn off Wi-Fi at say like 10 p.m. and then turn it back on at 6 a.m. or something like that, so that they never had to worry about security or somebody trying to, get onto an SSID or stuff like that.
Yep.
But in this case, whenever the Wi-Fi came back on, those devices would not reconnect. So they'd have to turn them off, turn them back on, and do a whole bunch of things. So we actually had to leave that one SSID on 24 hours for them to stay connected the whole time. So is that, and I don't know if this is something that you can answer, but is there, things like that you can change, the check-in times?
There's no way to change the check-in time. Something that could be interesting for you to consider here, though, if you look in Network Manager, if you look under the Advanced tab, this is where you'd bridge to a VLAN wirelessly if you chose to. There's a lever you could pull. It says block Lan Access. So here, if you needed to keep that SSID open, to serve the purpose that you just described, what's cool with block Lan Access is the access point actually has the ability to work as a firewall. And so all of the clients that are connected to that particular SSID are operating independent of any local resources. So your printers potentially could be connected over wireless, but if you're leaving that wireless on, you don't really have to run the risk of somebody sort of getting on that SSID and doing anything malicious.
So you could schedule the access to the LAN side, is what you're saying.
You wouldn't be scheduling it. You would always be blocking access to the LAN for the devices that are connected. Although thinking it through more, that might be a challenge with your printers. Yeah. So yeah, I can't say that there's a solution to that right now in the UI, but it's an interesting use case.
Actually, you know what? For that particular application, nobody on the LAN prints to those printers. It's only from their iPads. Yeah.
So that could be a good solution. And again, only for the name of security, because I know there's no way to toggle that at present in the UI. Maybe in the future.
Okay.
There are some new features that we're releasing with the Wi-Fi 6 devices. There's actually all new firmware. And there is a phased approach to rolling out additional features. And I won't get too much into what's not there yet. But two things in particular that you'll see that came forward in the UI yesterday with the release: support for WPA3, so added security, really a significant upgrade. And also, one of the access points has external antennas. So there's a toggle switch where you can either utilize the dipole antennas that are shipped with it, or if you wanted to do directionally focused Wi-Fi, super useful in a venue like a warehouse or maybe an arena where you have high ceilings. You have the ability to toggle that as well. And there's a lot of other cool stuff that's right around the corner in our newest firmware.
All right.
A note too for you is that firmware is going to end up rolling back to the AP42 and 62.
Okay, I was going to ask, what does that mean for the current access points? I assume that they're not going to work on the new Wi-Fi 6.
Correct. That's a hardware piece. Yep.
Okay. But you're going to have some features roll back so that you don't have to replace all of them, just where you would need it.
Yep. So the target, or I don't know the target time frame. I know it's soon. I won't share what it is, but the plan is for the new firmware to be available on the 42 and 62. So right now, for instance, if I wanted to leverage WPA3 for authentication, I'd have to have all AP40s or AP40Es, which are the two new models. If I have an AP62 in the environment, it defaults to WPA2. However, once we roll that update out, you might have a network where, maybe let's talk about like a hotel, right?
Okay.
Like an AP62 or 42, it's going to work well in a hotel room, or if you place them in the hallways for guests to connect to. Either
Right.
configuration, you don't have a lot of users there, but now think about where they hold conferences. And generally, you've got a high ceiling. Generally, you have a lot of people all at one time banging on Wi-Fi. I know that I've been to a million conferences where I can't connect to Wi-Fi successfully. And so these types of access points might be a better fit for a hospitality play in that conference center. And so you may run into some of these type of mixed network setups.
Okay. Now, what we didn't talk about was range. So I think this was another group after that. We were talking about the fact that we might be able to place one of the Wi-Fi 6 access points in a spot where we previously had to have 2, 3, or 4 for coverage. I don't think I saw any place where you guys talked about the range of the Wi-Fi 6 access points.
And so what we've gotten out of the engineering team based on their tests is that you're getting about an additional 50% coverage at minimum with the new access points. And then that extends further when you add something like a directional antenna into play. So with a directional antenna, they're saying 600 to 800 feet of range on the AP840E.
For outside.
Outside, correct.
Okay. Inside's probably going to be still dependent upon construction and walls and.
Of course, yeah, they're looking at like 3 to 4 walls. Again, that's assuming average size rooms, sheetrock, not brick wall, things like that.
All right. What about interference from other air?
So Wi-Fi 6 helps tremendously with that. I don't have any statistics I can share in terms of how interference is improved. I'll talk to my favorite engineer later and get back to you individually. Okay. But that's one of the big values that come along with Wi-Fi 6 is far less overhead. And so like if you've got a leaky microwave or you've got, I'm in a multi-family home. And I've got just Wi-Fi everywhere. Rhode Island, we pack house on house. So I've got the whole street's Wi-Fi contending with mine. If we're all on channel 36, we're going to have trouble. Right. But with Wi-Fi 6, you've got, what do they call it? BSS coloring. And so it helps an access point determine which SSID each channel 36 is related to. And that will actually eliminate a lot of those contention challenges.
Interesting. So, all right, we'll have to talk later and I'll have to formulate my question better because I'm thinking, how am I going to be able to analyze that with my existing tools? But I may not be able to. May have to upgrade some tools.
For heat mapping?
Yeah.
What do you use?
NetAlly.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I won't plug the tool that we use because it's not a Datto thing. So we'll talk about that later. Yeah.
All right. There's no sponsors in this show, so you don't have to worry about offending anybody.
Yeah, it's okay. It's more so, All
right. Interesting. So I should probably go back to and talk about the fact that at some point, so I know that I mentioned that we can bring Open Mesh over. So if you still have Open Mesh access points out there now, you can't bring every Open Mesh over. So the little box like the OMP5s, I don't think come over.
Everyone calls them the cigarette pack access point.
Yes.
They say, oh, it looks like a cigarette pack.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that doesn't come over. But the others, now, I remember you had to help me the first time I brought them over because they're not in the Datto portal. For instance, if you buy the access points from Datto, you can just add them automatically. But I actually had to email in and say, hey, I've got these access points. I need help bringing them over. So just I need to say that it's not as easy as taking it off CloudTrax and throwing it on the Datto networking.
Yeah, there's a middleman or middle process in the way, and essentially you just have to give us authorization to move them over to the Datto portal. Once that's been done, assuming that they're supported devices, which would include any A series access points, so A40, 42, 60, 62, also the MR1750, and then any open mesh switch, or even the G200 if people have those. But essentially, we need to know the MAC addresses. We validate that they're compatible. Assuming that they are, we ship over an authorization form, DocuSign it, send it back, and usually within 48 hours, we could have all those devices in your portal and ready to be used.
Yep, that was good.
Mm-hmm.
Were you going to say something else?
No, I was just going to say if they're attached to a network, right? So if it's an active network, we'll actually also carry over the configuration. So no downtime for the end user, no manual effort for you, Marvin, or for anybody else who might be making that move. So it's a pretty straightforward process.
That is true. I was worried about that. I had 3 that I was bringing over for an office, and it was part of a multi-office configuration. So I was worried I would have to redo that particular office, but I, got it all transferred over. Everything came right up. Everything reported. People didn't even have to. I don't know if they have to put in the password again, but I didn't get any calls, so I didn't have to worry about it.
Yep.
It was good.
Nobody believes it at first. Everyone's, I need to schedule this in off business hours. I'm like, just trust me. It's going to work pretty seamlessly.
It did.
Yep. Glad to hear.
All right. So anything else with Datto network? We spent a lot of time on Wi-Fi 6, but I don't want to neglect all the other stuff. So we've got the switches, the routers, anything else we want to mention as part of the networking stack?
So if you look at the full stack today, like you mentioned, routers, just quick high level, all-in-one devices. There's 2 machines. There's a DNA and a D200. Datto, we did like the very high level history earlier. We got into this space by differentiating with business continuity. So having a solution that scales well to a smaller medium business that's sold through the channel, but that pretty much eliminates the potential for downtime. And so when we introduced routers, we wanted to provide network continuity, especially useful today as folks continue to adopt at rapid paces cloud computing. And so connection to the internet, of course, and obviously is more critical than it ever has been. And so when you look at our edge devices, what's unique about them is that they have LTE integrated. So in the US, we work with Verizon and AT&T. You choose the carrier you'd like, and Datto actually owns that relationship. So one vendor to work with, you have a managed firewall. Everything we have is cloud managed, by the way. So super intuitive, all managed in the Datto partner portal, same place, Marvin, where you might manage one of your backup appliances or our SaaS protection platform. Essentially, you've now got that managed firewall with redundant internet built in, and we position it in a way that's a fixed cost. So you know what to expect. Your customers know what to expect, and they can budget to it. When I look at the switch side, we have access switches currently, PoE on every port. All of them support PoE plus. They do support SNMP, and a lot of other cool features built in. I think my favorite is LLDP med support. So plug a phone in, the switch knows by the MAC that it's a phone. It'll automatically trunk that port and assign all voice traffic to your voice VLAN. I think the thing that really makes the using Datto networking, I don't want to say special because it sounds tacky, but useful is the cloud controller. Really intuitive, but also really powerful. And I think Marvin alluded to that with Cloud Tracks.
Yeah. Well, even for the switches, like I said, I've been demoing. I'm not demoing. I purchased it. But that SL8, and once I turned everything on, got in the cloud, I mean, some of the features in there, being able to, disable the link from the cloud is pretty. You can, disable the link or disable PoE. If you know that you're never going to need it on that port, you just disable it. So all of that can be done. The traffic utilization. So all the stuff that I would plug my NetAlly tool in to find, a lot of that is in the cloud where you can find your top active ports, for the last day, last week, last month, all of that is in there.
Yeah. Also on that, where you mentioned you hover over the port and you can disable link or PoE. I like the reset feature. So I think about the number of times we had someone call in my managed services days, and it's like, oh, my phone won't work, right? I don't really want to tell somebody to go behind their machine and start pulling plugs. So it's pretty useful if you know what port the phone's connected in to just reboot that port. Phones almost always come back up.
Well, now that you mentioned that, the other feature that I liked that I have another device for that tells me which devices are in which ports, if you hover over it, it'll tell you the forwarding table with the number of devices. You click on that, and most of the devices, it'll tell you what the device or the manufacturer is, the MAC address, all behind that port. So that's built in there too.
Did you get into so when you click and you expand that full CAN table that you're sort of mentioning now, in the tools, another one that's kind of neat is in the controller, you have the ability to do a port test. And I think we call it something different, but if I'm worried about a link being disconnected or a bad cable from my office, I can test that port. The UI will report back within a matter of seconds. It'll tell me if it's an open port, if there's an active, or if there's a failed connection. And if it's an active connection, it'll also tell me how long the cable is. And so if I'm getting poor quality and I see over 130 meters, cause for concern, right? So just a lot of ways that you can prevent yourself from having to get into a car and go to a client site to troubleshoot.
Yep, a whole section called troubleshooting tools, cable diagnostics, LODP neighbors, ping, trace route, connected devices. So all that's in there.
Correct.
Very nice. Actually, I think I started to run it and I was impatient and stopped.
So you only had about 15 seconds to wait, Marvin.
I'm like,
you're like me. Shiny squirrel runs by. That's it. It's all over.
All right, I'll come back. But I just ran it, and that was about 5 seconds, and it gives me. I've got a device over there, pair A, B, C, and D. Okay, and gives me the estimated meter length. So built in there. Before I forget, I want to go back. Chris in the chat had asked a question, and we probably need to get more specifically. He asked, can you talk about the security features of the edge router? I don't know specifically which ones they are, but I'm assuming he's talking about VLAN, VPN.
So all of that's supported, right? So the first things first, both routers are stateful firewalls. The things that you'd really expect on any stateful firewall are built in and configurable. So what you've mentioned, you can create and manage multiple subnets. Depending on the firewall, there's a different ceiling. So like the DNA will let you have a primary LAN and 8 VLANs. You have the ability to configure VPN connections, either site to site or client. Again, I'll use the DNA as a reference here. We've baked in OpenVPN for client VPN connectivity, but it also supports IPsec. So if somebody wants to use native Windows VPN or TunnelBlick or any of these third parties, most of whom support IPsec, you can configure that as well. And then when I look at site to site, it's IPsec. And one of the things that's cool is ease of use. If I'm creating a site to site or a hub and spoke, and I have multiple DNAs or D200s, I'm just doing like 3 clicks of a mouse. It's a drop-down menu. I choose the other devices I'd like to pair to, and within seconds, I've created that tunnel, which is pretty neat.
Okay.
But above and beyond that, when I think about security on firewalls, I'm thinking about, next gen features. So software add-ons that help keep the network safe and secure. And you see a lot of this with other vendors today, and there's a lot of really cool, innovative stuff in the marketplace. The DNA has intrusion detection and prevention on board. It also has a content filtering service. The content filtering service is a DNS filter. So it's category based, pick and choose the categories of content you'd like to block. You can also get more granular. You could choose individual domains along with their subs. You could choose to whitelist or blacklist those. So really a quick and easy way to keep an environment secure, but also I see it oftentimes used for productivity. So Marvin, I don't know if you've ever had a customer who says like, hey, can you keep people off of Facebook or dating sites or whatever?
Oh, yeah.
Yep. That. So you could do that here too.
It's bad because they'll be like, well, open it up for lunch, but we want it closed the rest of the time.
Exactly. Yeah. And have fun managing that. Hold on, every day calling a ticket at 11:30 a.m.
Well, it's the person that, it's the person that goes to lunch from 1 to 2 instead of 12 to 1. And they're like, well, can you open it up for this person, but not for everybody else?
Yeah.
Okay.
For sure. And I get it. And that's pretty common. Unfortunately, it's difficult to manage.
All right. Yeah. Those were the features I was going to ask about, the IPSCF and the gateway antivirus. You have that built in at all?
We do not. So
Okay.
I will say this, and just being candid, when I look at our firewalls and I compare them to to other firewalls in the industry today, you've got a firewall, and a firewall is pretty much a firewall. But now today you look at devices and you call them UTMs, and features like you mentioned. I think the big one is Geo IP filtering today.
Yep.
And we don't have it right now. And we're committed to the edge. So again, I'm not going to share anything that's not already available or isn't definitely coming in the next couple of weeks. But we're working on some things to build out the lineup so that our partners can benefit from some of those added security solutions too.
All right.
When I look at the current lineup, customers who are looking for always up internet, food and beverage, retail, we have a great solution for that. People who bill hourly, our routers, because of the failover piece, great solution there. So there's a subset of customers where the DNA or D200 are the perfect fit. And if I look at somebody, a bank, likely you might want some other security features on board.
Yeah, I've got some law firms that and I'll say this, I'm on SonicWall. And so as soon as I get to the point where I can replace some of those, the next step might be to a Datto device for that.
I like where your head's at.
But we still have to have that geo block and some other stuff. Anyway, But here we go. Keep them off TikTok.
Yeah, you can block social sites like TikTok. And So I'm in grad school right now, Marvin, speaking of TikTok. And so I'm the oldest person by a long shot trying to get my MBA, and I get paired into groups all the time. And so my groups, it'll usually be me, old balding guy, and a couple of guys or girls who are like 22. They just graduated college. And so whenever you have downtime, they start to talk about things. And, they're talking about all these people they follow on TikTok. And I'm like, I don't get it. So I'm now starting to age myself and feel old. My kids do the TikTok thing, but I haven't gotten there. I'm like an innovator with Facebook, but after that, I'm lost.
So the kids should be trying to get you to do a TikTok with them. Have they tried that yet?
Marvin, my kids don't want me on any social media platform that they're on. In fact, I think that's why they use TikTok.
Oh, okay.
Snapchat, TikTok, the ones dad and mom don't use, those are the ones we want.
Because that was the thing. I've got some family members that are like, oh, we should do a family TikTok. And I'm like, I don't think so.
Yeah, not in this family.
I do not think so. I'm still trying to deal. So I just came to Facebook a few years ago.
Okay.
That's how bad I am.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was, when it was new, I don't know, was it like 2007-ish, I think. And now I'm just out of social media. I've, I found myself using LinkedIn a little bit more lately than I had been in the past, and liking it for business purposes. I don't know. I've sort of tuned it out because there's so much advertisement going on in Instagram and Facebook that I've just kind of quit.
Yeah, it's bad. I had a long conversation on Monday with a gal. We were doing another podcast, and we talked about marketing in the IT space. And, everybody's been told for the last couple of years, advertise on Facebook, advertise on Instagram. And I'm like, my first thought is, why? I'm not going to find my law firms on Instagram.
Yeah.
So we
Definitely.
talked about
that's a tough pull.
Yeah. But we talked about the fact that, start using LinkedIn more. And
Agreed.
I think, I don't know what's happened in the last year or so with LinkedIn, but something has triggered there where I am getting a lot more engagement when I post stuff. So it may be a place for me. And I only get onto social media. Well, I had to get on Facebook because my high school reunion, when they were doing it for 20 year or whatever, they would only post it on Facebook. And I'm like, well, you're missing out on a lot of people. There's people who don't want to be on Facebook.
Yeah.
But I got on, and I got on LinkedIn, but I didn't do anything with that. So because of the podcast, started to do stuff. So
makes sense. Yeah. Shameless plug here. Datto partners, you, Marvin, you have the ability to leverage Market Now.
yes.
So you can, from there, you can set up automated campaigns and basically utilize our content as yours and run those campaigns on social media.
So shameful self deprivation. So I was looking at that just yesterday thinking, oh, I should probably use this. And I went to look at it, and the stuff was there, but I'm like, how am I going to use that?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's not really my department. I just know that it's super valuable to a lot of partners. It's the platform that we use and the company who develops it. If you go to them individually, it's super expensive. I've played with it a little bit. And so like, I know, when I'm looking to target potentially backup and disaster recovery customers or SaaS protection, I have a lot of targeted campaigns around ransomware. So you set up like the ransomware campaign,
right,
and you set your time intervals, and it sends out a teaser and then a more detailed, and it's giving people links to click on. And if they click on those links, it ends up on a list of hot leads for you. So it's like they categorize the lead as one thing if they open an email maybe, and then if they click on a link, it's a warmer lead. And it's kind of like the old school MSP sales track of warm up the cold call until it's a hot call.
Yeah, it looks pretty good. So you can see the last email sent, the high and hot leads, web leads, and then the opportunity with the opportunity pipeline, and it actually gives you a dollar amount as to what the opportunity is. So all that looks pretty good. And of course, there's, you mentioned the ransomware, business continuity, backup disaster, and social media campaign is right there. Yep. So looks pretty good.
Little added value, little nugget for you.
So if anybody out there has actively used this or is using it, and you want to just give me a quick rundown and let me know if it's worked for you, let me know. And I may include that as part of the Summer Tech Series, where we'll come on and talk about that on one of the upcoming shows. All right. So got a little off track there. Anything that we missed or forgot to talk about?
Are you asking me? I guess you are, right? Just in the world of Datto news. So I put this on social media, but we recently had a third party publish a report on what it's like to be a Datto partner, and it could help you analyze whether it's a good investment for you. So definitely check that out if you can. Find me on LinkedIn, and there's a link directly right there.
What was your caption? The nerdy in me showing? Is that what you put on there?
The inner nerd, I think I put. Yeah. So like, it's not for everybody, but I like numbers and I like analytics. And so as soon as I saw this, I started, foaming at the mouth and print. I actually used a printer for the first time in a lot of years.
And a color one too.
Yeah, color. I used the color ink on this, which is saying a lot. And I even highlighted things. So it's definitely an interesting read. Upcoming, we have, and I'm going to mess up the name of it, but we have a like how to market effectively as an MSP webinar. We've been doing a quarterly webinar. The last few have been all focused on technology. This one seems to have a really big appeal, especially coming out of a pandemic. And so we've already got a lot of registrants for that. And I'd encourage anybody who's looking to grow their business, Datto partner or otherwise, to check that out. There's going to be a lot of great content on it.
All right. And I do have the link for where you can go if you are not currently a Datto partner. It's pretty easy. Go to datto.com/partners. The link is showing up on the video screen now. Or if you're listening and you don't have time to write it down, head to the show notes later and it will be in there, datto.com/partners. And go and read about all the good stuff that we are talking about today. All right, Ryan. So we're at that point in the show where instead of ending off, I give you the opportunity to challenge Florida Man Or answer a random question.
Yeah, so I don't like the idea of a random question.
No.
And while Rhode Island is a much smaller state than Florida, interesting things happen pretty regularly here. And the cool thing about Rhode Island is when it happens, everybody knows about it. So I popped in the local news and I looked up a few interesting stories and I picked one out. One of the things you've got to understand if you don't know Rhode Island well is, again, obviously a very small state, basically surrounded and engulfed by Massachusetts and Connecticut, mostly Massachusetts. And so we have little man syndrome, and we just don't like Massachusetts, right? If it's Massachusetts, we don't want it here. But there's just no intermingling, or there's no way to prevent the intermingling. So I'll give you the title here. It's Mass Firefighter Arrested in Middletown, which is right outside of Newport, for naked 7-Eleven run. So essentially, a Linfield, Massachusetts man was arrested in Middletown after police say he brought a Diet Coke at a 7-Eleven while completely nude. John Walsh is his name, 60 years old, was charged with disorderly conduct by Middletown police last Wednesday. Walsh's girlfriend told officers that she dared him to walk into the store naked after he said it was legal to do so in Rhode Island. Walsh is a captain of the Linfield Fire Department and has been suspended pending an investigation as a result of buying a Coke at 7-Eleven nude. So I don't know where the technology fits in there, Marvin, but I couldn't resist but sharing that story. It made me chuckle.
No, that doesn't have to have technology at all. Although, so he was 60?
60 years old.
And how old is this girlfriend that she's going to double dare you?
I don't know. But you know what? You were talking about, different policies in Florida, and Massachusetts has a more open policy than the one you described. So who knows?
Oh, all right. Okay. Well, that was a pretty good story. So the other one that I would have come up with today was that a Florida man was arrested after a brawl over Tom Brady. So Tom Brady, of course, the New England quarterback that came down and got a Super Bowl for Tampa Bay. Mm-hmm. Well, he hasn't made everybody in that area happy. Brian Palter, age 33, became enraged during a heated argument about Tampa Bay Buccaneers quarterback Tom Brady after drinking all day with friends. So once the group got home, Palter and one of his friends got into a physical fight. Palter allegedly hit the man in the face several times, causing visible injuries and a lot of blood. He then directed his anger at two women who were inside the home. And they don't even say what the argument was. It was just about Tom Brady. So not everybody wants to name it Tampa Bay, I guess.
I know I don't. I'm a big Kansas City Chiefs fan, so I'm still a little bit sore.
Oh.
Yeah. But I got a Super Bowl. I waited I
was going to say, I
didn't wait 50 years, but I waited 41 years to win a Super Bowl. So it's been worth it.
And there's a chance you'll go back.
There's a small chance. I think it's tough. The Patriots have made it look easy, but rebuilding an NFL organization or keeping one at that top level.
Yeah, but you guys haven't lost anybody, right?
I mean, a couple offensive linemen, and then we good offensive linemen too. But
but didn't Brown, you guys replace?
Yeah, we got a guy from Baltimore. I forget his first name. I think his last name is Brown, but left tackle. He looks good. And we grabbed another guy too, not quite as well known, but I think we should be all right.
Yeah, I mean, Kansas City did what Green Bay wouldn't, where when they said we need help for Patrick Mahomes, they got it. Whereas Green Bay, we need help for Aaron Rodgers. Well, how about we draft your backup?
Yeah, we're gonna get a receiver.
Yeah. But you guys should be back. Kelsey, did he get hurt this year?
Kelsey was solid all year.
Okay.
A couple minor things, but nothing long term. And I feel like Hill gets hurt like regularly, but he's tough. He just keeps coming back and going. And Mahomes had the turf toe thing, and I forget what happened to him. He missed a couple games earlier in the season. But what really hurt us in the Super Bowl was we had the two linemen who are no longer with us get injured, and Mahomes he couldn't move like normal, and it seemed like he was just running in circles trying to get away from defenders all game long.
Yeah,
and Brady played great. He really did.
That was definitely apparent that if Mahomes couldn't stay upright, you guys didn't have much of a chance.
Nope.
But you'll be back.
Hey, listen, like I said, winning one in a lifetime is enough. Going to a Super Bowl the next year is even better. And I mean, I'm only 41, so maybe I get another, I don't know. We'll see.
I'm not going to say my age, but I have Miami and Tampa, and now we have Jacksonville.
That's right, you do.
Although I'm very upset with them, and we'll talk about that after we end off the show. So I don't want to say that on the air and have people screaming and yelling at me. So, folks, we are going to start to end off the show here, Podnutz Pro, and we've been joined by Datto product specialist Ryan. And I don't think I said your last name.
Grindrod.
Grindrod.
Yes, sir.
Ryan Grindrod from Datto.
Yeah, super cool to be here. Thanks for having me.
All right, great. So come back and join us every week, Wednesday at 8 p.m. Again, you can watch us live on YouTube and the Facebook, or you can head over to podnutzpro.com, scroll through all the past episodes. Remember, I mentioned the one with Jason Price from Datto earlier this year. And join us starting in June as we start off the Summer Tech Series. We are going to be heavily focused on tech-centric stuff. We'll have a lot more business owners, MSPs, computer repair shops, and we'll talk about all the things that I say we're going to talk about, product stories and tips to help you run your business better, smarter, and faster. That is going to do it on behalf of my friend Ryan Grindrod and the Kansas City Chiefs. Thank you very much for participating, and we'll see you next week. And until next time, holla.